So what you learned was that your problems weren't as important as other people's.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Is that true here?
No.
Trauma isn't just something you remember, it is something you feel in your chest, in your gut, in your breath. In this webinar, we will show you decades of neuroscience and clinical work, but they reveal about how trauma lives on in the body and how to begin recovering from it.
Wherever there's tension, it requires attention. If you pay close enough attention to yourself, before the eruption, you'll start noticing the tension rising in your body.
You can't really talk your way out of trauma, but you can learn to feel safe again in your body, in your relationships, and in your life. Join me for a live session where we'll talk about how.
Welcome everyone. We're live again. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you everyone for being here, for showing up again. This is the 4th day, so it means a lot to us, and mostly it means a lot for you, because it means that, well, you're ready to take care of yourself, and well, that's already an immense step. So we have 2 days left, okay? On Sunday, we are with Dr. Frank Anderson. He's a specialist of the concept of inner parts. So we are going to the 4th stage of the whole summit, and it's the most important step. It's the step of integration. So on Sunday, we will practice how to meet your parts and also how to integrate them. So that's going to be amazing. Really, really looking forward to it. And today is a bit special because it's only me, and I'll show you some free extracts of the HEAL program of Gabor Maté. So I'm really excited because we've never shown any of this for free before. So I really look forward for your feedback in the chat. Now, before I show you the first extracts, I think, you know, if we've learned something this week from Gabor, from Bessel, and many more, it's that there is scientific evidence that there is enough neuroplasticity in the brain to create those new neural pathways that you need to actually heal. There's a man who, as a child, was abandoned, right? He cried and he cried, but no one came, and you know, no one heard him. And what that creates in a child is a deep imprint, the trauma of being unseen. And for many years, that wound stays buried, but it also creates a kind of sensitivity, a radar for human pain. That child grew up with this extraordinary ability. He could see through people. He could really cut through the noise. He could look past the surface and really immediately sense what someone was really carrying. And so what began as a wound when he was a child actually became a gift. That sensitivity that he had allowed him to understand human suffering in a way that really few people could. And that man became one of the world's leading voices on trauma and healing. Not because he studied it from the outside, but because he lived through what living with trauma is like, and he had to find a way out for himself, right? And this man, it's Gabor Maté. And in the Heal program that you're going to see, he's really put the essence of what has helped him. Now, you've seen a lot of videos of him already, probably, if you're here. So you're going to ask, how can this help? And, we built Mentor Show because the self-help industry is broken. Here's the thing, you consume this next book, you listen to this next podcast, the next training, and for a moment you feel inspired. You get that little dopamine hit, like, okay, this makes so much sense. But then what happens? You switch to the next thing and the next learning, and in the end, nothing has concretely changed. And Mentor Show exists to break that pattern. Instead of giving you more information, we give you the structure, the practice, and the accountability. Because, consuming more knowledge is not going to change your life. It's really practice that does change your life. Think about, I already mentioned that before, but, think about a friend of yours who come and see you and tells you, I'm going to get fit. But actually, he's only watching videos on how to get fit, and he's not really lifting anything. You'll think it's absurd, and I think it's the same for healing. So that's why Mentor Show is here to really catalyze that knowledge from Gabor, from all the experts in the world, and make it applicable and practical to your life. Okay, let's get right into it, and already start with a few extracts here. And I'll come back right after the first lesson to answer questions and to present to you the offers and answer questions about the program. This is going to be the first lesson, but I'm going to show quite a few right now. I'm going to give you some parts of the emergency kit, a lot of different exercises. So I'm really impassioned to get your feedback. All right, let's get started.
So in this lesson, I'll be telling you briefly what I've come to understand about trauma. And that's a word that's used quite a bit these days, sometimes, in my view, inappropriately. And in other areas, it's not used sufficiently at all. So it can be both used trivially and somewhat promiscuously, but can also be used in a way that misunderstands what it is. So this is my personal take on trauma. It's not necessarily everybody understands it, but throughout this masterclass, when I use the word trauma, here's what I mean by it, and here's what I don't mean by it. Literally, the word means wound. So trauma is a wound. It comes from a Greek word for wound or wounding. So trauma is a wound. Obviously, people can suffer physical wounds, or they can sustain emotional, psychological wounds. And in this case, we're talking about the emotional, psychological wounds. Trauma is not only a wound, trauma is also a wound that hasn't healed. If you were wounded, and if the wound heals, well, that's perfectly okay. So in this case, we're talking about unhealed wounds that so many of us still carry, and they have all kinds of impacts in our lives. Understanding that trauma means the wound, it also means that trauma is not what happened to you. Trauma is what happened inside you as a result of what happened to you. So, some people use the word trauma as the abuse that they were subjected to as children. physical, sexual, or emotional. I'll be talking about that more later. Or they might think of the word trauma as something terrible that happened to their family as a result of war. Well, those are the traumatic events. Those are the traumatic happenings. So there's the traumatic event, but that's not the same as the trauma. The trauma is what happened inside you. What wound did you sustain as a result of the traumatic events? So by saying that the abuse wasn't a trauma, I'm not trivializing the impact of that event. I'm just saying that was the cause, but the effect is what the trauma is. So the blow on the head, just to give you one example, is not the trauma. The trauma is the concussion and the symptoms like the dizziness, forgetfulness, imbalance, whatever may follow from that concussion. So that concussion is the actual trauma. That's an important distinction. And it's essential for healing, because if we think that trauma is what happened to me at age 1 or to you at age 4 or 5, then it's over. It's finished. There's nothing you can do about it. It will never not have happened. I will never not have been a Jewish infant under Nazi occupation in Hungary, 1944-45. I can't change that past. But if the trauma is the wounds, the emotional imprint that I sustained, that still is maybe still present in some ways, well, that wound can be healed in the present. So trauma is what's with you now. It's the wound that's still with you now. So that's the first point. The second point is that not everything painful and stressful is traumatic. Everything traumatic is painful and stressful, but you can have pain and stress without being traumatized. And sometimes people don't understand that. So they say, you know, I went on a date and my partner didn't show up and I was traumatized. No, you weren't. You were disappointed and you had feelings of pain and maybe anger or believed that you were being rejected, but you weren't necessarily traumatized unless you sustained a wound that you'd be carrying for a long time. And for the most part, those wounds are sustained fairly early in childhood. So again, everything traumatic is painful and stressful, but not every pain and not every stress is traumatic. Now, if you look at the nature of wounds, if you're going to use that wound metaphor, then wounds can behave generally in two ways. One is they stay open, unhealed. And that means every time they're touched, there's tremendous pain. So if you're touched on a part of your body that doesn't have a physical wound, you'll have no pain. But if you have a physical wound and somebody touches it, you'll have extreme pain. So where we're traumatized, we have these points of pain, which is when they're touched. And again, they can be touched in the case of the emotional trauma very much through words, for example. Somebody says a word to you, and if you have a wound there, that's going to cause you a lot of pain. So that's one aspect of a wound, is that open wounds, unhealed wounds, are very sensitive areas where we have pain, which we wouldn't have if the wound wasn't there. And throughout this masterclass, you'll be seeing examples of how that pain shows up and also how to heal the wounds. Now, the other characteristic of a wound is it can develop scar tissue. Well, scar tissue is good. It knits the flesh together. But scar tissue has certain characteristics that is also the way that trauma can affect you. So scar tissue is hard, and so you get hardened. You're not as vulnerable, you're not as open as you would be if you hadn't been traumatized. So there's a hardness sometimes. Scar tissue doesn't feel. It doesn't have nerve endings in it. And so people who are traumatized are very often incapable of feeling of what's really going on in them, what's really going on inside them. Scar tissue also doesn't grow. Like normal flesh grows throughout life and certainly throughout adolescence. Where we get traumatized, we tend to get stuck. So a lot of people who are traumatized, they haven't grown beyond the point of trauma, which means effectively they're functioning like young children. They're functioning emotionally like young children. So when somebody says to you, grow up already, that doesn't sound very nice, but they might be pointing to something real. They might be pointing to a part of you that hasn't grown because it's scarred over there and you couldn't grow. You know, if my wife says to me, don't be such a baby, well, I'm not particularly happy to hear that, but there's some truth in it. I may be functioning at that moment like a much younger human being because something in me got arrested in terms of development. And that's what I mean by trauma causing a scar that doesn't grow. How we can get traumatized is basically in two ways that I'll say more about later. But we can get wounded by things being done to us that shouldn't be done to any child, such as physical or sexual or emotional abuse. These shouldn't happen to any child. And there are more, which I'll cover in our first exercise related to this lesson too. But the other ways children can get wounded is less obvious and sometimes harder for people to see. And that's not bad things done, not bad things happening to you that shouldn't have happened, but the good things that should have happened not happening. And what I mean by that is your needs not being met. Now, children are born with needs, and those needs are obviously physical, nourishment, warmth, shelter, support. But we also have emotional needs that are wired into us. And human beings can be hurt not just if somebody does something physically or otherwise aggressive towards them, but also if they deprive them of their needs. So obviously, we need oxygen to live. If anybody deprives you of oxygen, they're hurting you. If they deprive you of food, they're hurting you. But children can also be wounded and hurt when their emotional needs are not met, not satisfied. And those are more difficult to remember because it's easier to remember what happened than what didn't happen. So that's my overall understanding of what trauma is. Trauma has a number of impacts. One of them is if somebody touches your wound, all of a sudden you're reacting as you did way back then. So it's hard for you to be in the present. And as an adult with full awareness, you might respond one way, but if a wounded part of you is touched and you get what we call triggered, then you're actually reacting to the past. Trauma limits what is called response flexibility. If something happens, response flexibility means that you can respond appropriately to the needs of the present moment. And you might have a number of choices. And that's what's called response flexibility. You can be elastic in how you respond. When people are traumatized, they tend to lose response flexibility, which is the function of the midfrontal part of our cortex. So part of the job of the midfrontal cortex, the gray matter of our brain at the front of our brains, is response flexibility. When people react from a place of trauma, the cortex goes offline and you react from a much more primitive, much more defensive or aggressive part of your brain. So trauma limits response flexibility. Trauma, as I mentioned in lesson 1, tends to disconnect us from our bodies. That's why so much of the teaching here is to reconnect and to be aware. And even as I'm talking to you right now, be aware of what's happening in your body. Try and maintain that awareness. So trauma disconnects us from ourselves, which really actually is the greatest impact of trauma, that disconnection from the self. Trauma gives you a negative view of yourself. You tend to be ashamed of yourself. When people say you should be ashamed of yourself, that's very different from you didn't do something here that was right, or you did something here that was wrong. Let's learn from it. Or even healthy remorse. If I let you down somehow, if I make it a promise and I didn't keep it, if inadvertently I hurt you somehow, I might have healthy remorse. But should I be ashamed of myself? Should I be ashamed of my very being? And trauma imposes on a lot of people a shame-based view of themselves. And they see themselves as flawed and damaged goods. And nobody is damaged goods as far as I'm concerned, but trauma makes you believe that you are. Trauma shapes your view of the world. Do you trust this world? That it can provide you with support? Or you're fearful and suspicious? How do you feel about other people? Trauma affects all that. And of course, trauma finally is multi-generational. Didn't begin with anybody in particular. It's passed on from one generation to the next. People pass it on unwittingly. Parents pass it on without meaning to. And so, blame. Trauma imposes a lot of sense of blame, either towards yourself or towards others. And really, when you understand the impersonal, multi-generational nature of trauma, you realize that there's nobody left to blame. And in the first lesson, I read you a poem by Hafiz, the, I think, 13th or 12th century Sufi Persian poet. I'll read you another one about blame. This is Hafiz on blame. He says, blame keeps the sad game going. The sad game. It keeps stealing all your wealth, giving it to an imbecile with no financial skills, Dear one, wise up. So he calls blame not sad game. And we impose that blame as a result of trauma on ourselves and on others. The final thing I'll say about trauma here is there's a wisdom in it. The wisdom shows up in two ways. One is that very often the traumatic imprint is actually an adaptation. I mentioned this bracelet in my first lesson. And I mentioned that I was given it in Haida Gwaii in northern British Columbia. When I gave that workshop, which is where this happened, for Indigenous people who had been traumatized by colonialism, there was an elder that came up asking for help, and she was the very last person at this workshop to seek help. And she said, I'm so ashamed of myself. She was in her late 70s. And she said, I'm so ashamed of myself. I said, why? She says, because I forgot my native language. I forgot my Haida language. I said, what happened? She said, I was 5 years old. I was taken to the residential school. These are schools that the state and the church forced native kids to be enrolled in. And on the first day, she spoke her native tongue. She spoke her national language, Haida language, and the teacher took a stick and beat her mercilessly. And she says, even now as an adult, when I try to learn my language, when I go to school, I can't remember the words. And I'm so ashamed of myself. I said, okay, what would have happened to you if you hadn't forgotten your language? Because the natural impulse of the child is to ask for help. And if help is not available, then to run away. But could you have done either of that? Of course not. So therefore, forgetting her language was the wisdom of the trauma. It was her adaptation. It's what saved her life. Because as a 5-year-old, she couldn't have kept herself from speaking her language, so she had to forget it. And the fear of it was instilled into her as an adaptation. But even as an adult, that fear kept her from learning her language. And then she was ashamed for not fighting back. And I said, what would have happened if you fought back? There's no help. You couldn't run away. If you fought back, obviously, you would have been grievously hurt. So not fighting back, freezing, was the wisdom of her organism. It was an adaptation. That same freezing no longer works for her as an adult, but it did at the time. So in another lesson, I may say more about trauma as an adaptation. So that's the wisdom in the trauma. But there's another wisdom when we can learn from trauma. It can actually teach us so much. I don't recommend trauma as a teaching or as a learning, as a way of growth for anybody. I don't wish it on anybody, but once it's there, boy, can it teach us. And I'll finish this lesson by one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite teachers. And he says, your conflicts, all the difficult things, the problematic situations in your life are not chance or haphazard. They're actually yours. They're specifically yours, designed specifically for you by a part of you that loves you more than anything else. The part of you that loves you more than anything else has created roadblocks to lead you to yourself. You're not going to go in the right direction unless there's something pricking you on the side, telling you, look here, this way. That part of you loves you so much that it doesn't want you to lose the chance. It will give you it will go to extreme measures to wake you up. It will make you suffer greatly if you don't listen. What else can it do? That's its purpose. And what he's saying here is that the pain that we experience from trauma, way that trauma stops us in our tracks is a way of our organism telling us that there's something to be learned here, that we're not going in the right direction, not this way, this way. So the other wisdom of trauma is once it's there, it can teach us. So rather than just trying to get rid of its symptoms and pushing it away and suppressing it, let's use it as a teacher. It can be a powerful mentor to all of us.
Hello, everyone. So how did you feel about this first extract? How did you feel? This is an extract of the Heal masterclass that we talked about this week. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about it. But, how did you feel? Profoundly, how beautiful that was. So awakening, tears. Okay, well, that's nice to see. You can see in this extract, which is in the first lessons of the course, that Gabor really poured his heart into this masterclass. I mean, it's very powerful. It's very crisp, amazing, emotional, resonated with it, powerful, incredible, resonates, profound, awake, enlightening. I can't read it. It's going too fast, but I also think it was an amazing one, and all the masterclass is like this just because Gabor really worked, really poured his heart into the course with his way of being so authentic and trying to help as much as he could. These allegories about the scar tissue and everything in this lesson is wonderful. I'm gonna show you. This was just the first extract, so if you like that, I think you're gonna like this whole evening, because I'm gonna show you. I have more in store for you. I'm gonna show you again a few lessons. This was a little bit more theoretical, but then there are some exercises and so on. So I'm gonna show you that in just a moment. Just in between, I'm going to take a few minutes to answer some questions about the program and show you a little bit the inside of Mentor Show. There were a few questions about what's in the Heal masterclass. So I'm going to start by showing you the Heal course and really what's in it. So you can see. No, you cannot see here. There we go. You can see this is the website, the Mentor Show website. Here there are a lot of masterclasses, but what I want to show you is Gabor's course. So you recognize the masterclass here. We just saw one of the extracts here. And so what's included in this course, people ask. So the first thing is it's the HEAL program. So we created this program as a methodology, a 4-step methodology to go towards healing. And it's comprised of 4 steps. The first step is H, to hear the pain. And this is really the part of what we just saw, which is the wisdom of trauma, right? It's how to have trauma be your teacher and really understand his impact in your life and how to use it to understand yourself. Just so you know, overall, like there's about 61 lessons in the HEAL masterclass with about 29 hours of Gabor. So, you know, if you liked this lesson, you're gonna love it because there's plenty of it. Here, we just saw this lesson right here. What is trauma really? So this is the 4th lesson of the course. After a few exercises, a few meditations, to get in the right mind space. Then you get some self questionnaires. So here it's questionnaires that are built by Gabor to diagnose your trauma and to really understand. There's one questionnaire for small t trauma and one questionnaire for big T trauma. Then there's the happy childhood exercise. It's also an amazing exercise. And then a whole lesson about recognizing trauma in your life. Then there's the exercise about the impact and the event. The impact and the event is how to understand. It's a concrete writing exercise. So there's different types of exercises in the masterclass. There's meditations led by Gabor. There are some somatic exercises. Then there are some writing exercises, right? So you take your healing diary, your notebook, and you write. It's been proven, there's a lot of scientific study about the benefits of writing for trauma healing. So that's why there's dozens of writing exercises in this class. And this is one of them. And here, the goal of this exercise is to map out the impact of trauma in your personality, in your relationships, in your character, and I don't remember what's the 4th one, but in your life in general. There are some lessons about how to understand your conflict between authenticity and attachment, and so on and so forth. There's a whole part about addiction as well. We had a lot of questions on addiction, and obviously Gabor is a real expert on that. So here we have some different exercises to build alternative coping mechanism, because obviously trauma is a huge factor of addiction, and Gabor built some tools that you can use to have some alternative coping mechanisms. The E part is the most important part. You see there's 20 lessons, and here it's to empower yourself to heal. So here you get strategies to heal, concrete exercises. The first one is how to deal with triggers and self-destructing behavior. I think I'm going to show a bit of this later, but this is one of the best lessons. It's a bit long, but people really love it. You can see here, so powerful to see this. It opened my eyes, how we are programmed by childhood trauma, and moreover, very good techniques with the emergency kit. Thank you. This is brilliant. Wow, so powerful, and so on. So you can see all the comments here. The demonstration of the exercise opened my heart to so many new possibilities. Thanks you, Helen and Victory, for being open and sharing your feelings. So this is another thing that's important here is, maybe I'll show you later, but another thing that's included in this masterclass is, I think, something that is very unique. And it's simply that we brought some participants during the shooting, and you can see Gabor in action with those participants, right? And Gabor, it was my introduction before. Gabor has a mesmerizing way of really cutting through the noise and really going down very deep into the core of the inside of a person. And this live consultations that you get, there's about 10 of them. This is meant to be contagious for you, and we have chosen people who you can identify with, and you'll see that there are some really touching moments of realization. And I think this is very unique, because Gabor sometimes does this in seminars and so on, but if you would want to see this, you would have to travel, you would have to pay potentially thousands of dollars to be able to see this. And here, well, you get it in the masterclass. By the way, I see a lot of questions about the course and the masterclass and so on. I'm gonna try to answer all of those, so you can keep shooting. I'll sort of like answer a little bit and then show you some extracts and so on, so that everyone can get a little bit out of this session tonight. So yeah, these live participants, I think it's really an amazing part of the course. So I'm just going to keep going in the empower yourself to heal. Here there are some the upset exercise, emergency kit. I'm going to show you some parts of the emergency kit later, but there are amazing things, message in the bottle, how to use music, how to speak to your heart. And then there are some routines as well. So there's a daily practice, something that you do every day. There's a weekly practice. And by the way, these things, they're not some things that are random. There are some things that Gabor uses for himself, right? So this is why it's so powerful, because as was my introduction, Gabor had to use those things and to make them up for himself. For example, daily practice. I'm not showing my screen anymore. There you go. Daily practice, strategies. So you can see there's two large lessons on strategies and technique for healing trauma. This is the first part. And then there's the second part right here. Practical approaches. This is really an amazing one as well. So this is a good example here. My heart broke for Donna, but joy that she's getting this experience with Gabor. So this is an example of the live participant part, because Donna is being really searched through by Gabor, and this is really a vehicle for strong transformation. This masterclass is phenomenal. The content is so relatable, because Gabor Maté shares about his own journey with trauma. So you can see these are like just comments below the masterclass. So you can see what people say. It's quite incredible to have this kind of impact, and that it's really helping out a lot of people right here. What can I show you more? So this is the empower yourself to heal. This is a very powerful lesson as well. You know that Gabor's method, he's known for compassionate inquiry, how to use compassionate inquiry to heal from trauma and to treat with yourself. And here it's how to integrate compassionate inquiry into your life. So this is a powerful one as well. Then, once you've gone through all these exercises to empower yourself to heal, there's a whole part on aligning with your relationships, right? So how to heal as a couple. There's the meta practice in here that is amazing. I saw a lot of questions on intergenerational trauma in the chat. So this is the whole part on intergenerational trauma, how to break the cycle with your children, and how to create factors of protection for your children as well. There's also a lesson on how to support a loved one who has experienced trauma. When we had we talked about thousands of people before making the masterclass, and a lot of people asked us, how can I help someone who has experienced trauma? So this is the lesson about it. And the last part is lifelong healing. So how to create the routines and the habits for lifelong healing and different exercises. Actually, this last part is really amazing.
Energies.
Routines and habits for lifelong healing. You can see actually here, like there's some, I know I will listen the whole masterclass again and again. I've learned so much from this class. This is where people, this will be my new routine. So much wisdom, it has opened my eyes. I found this lifeline late in life, but it will have an effect on all my life anyway. So this is, I truly wish the Maté Heal method was practiced in mental health facilities everywhere. As a therapist, I can say I learned more to help clients through this program than in graduate school. So this is, I mean, here they're talking about the whole masterclass, but this is the conclusion of the course, and I'll show you this on Sunday. Okay, so at the end of the whole summit, this will be a good end. So you can try to stay until there. I'll try to show it to you. Just one more thing I wanted to show you. It's that there's a lot of questions about the replays. Is there a replay of the summit and so on? So you get the replays. It's being sent in the chat, and you also will have a link sent to you by email and so on. But the replay that you get is just, you're going to be able to watch it just for a few days until the end of the summit. If you want the whole replay and to be able to watch it and watch it over again, you can join Mentor Show and you will have it here, right? So you can see all the replays of the different webinars that we've done. So, I mean, you saw there's really incredible testimonies on the effect of the masterclass, and this is just like a few of the 50,000 people who mentioned that the Heal masterclass has really transformed their life. And I think to sum it up, like, people mention 3 feelings at the end of the course. One, a feeling of lightness, that this beautiful sense of release, that they feel light again. It's something that Gabor mentions in the masterclass, is that feeling of dropping that bag of stone that you've been carrying, and being able to walk again lightly into the world. The second feeling is a feeling of calmness, because they stop this endless cycle of triggers and automatic reactions. So they've rebuilt their nervous system to capacity to feel safe and grounded. And through rewiring shame, reconnecting with this authenticity that Gabor talks a lot about, they learn to really truly value themselves. And the last feeling is a feeling of connection. Just because through the part of relationship and parenting, they learn how to connect to people again, and connect through their authentic self. So, many people tell us, like, I realized that I didn't have to live like this. And this is really beautiful to see. It's thanks to us. I'm the co-founder of Mentor Show. Obviously, I'm part of it, but it's mostly thanks to Gabor and Gabor's words. Okay, we'll watch a little bit more of the masterclass. Just before, a lot of people ask, like, what does the yearly membership include, and so on. So I'll just give a quick brief on this before we watch some more of the course. The masterclass, the membership includes the Gabor Maté Heal method, the replays of the webinars. There's also the masterclass from Bessel that we just launched with the personalized plan and all the different practices that he's gathered over the 40 years of scientific studies, EMDR, Qigong, theater, somatic practices, and so on and so forth. And you also get these weekly live sessions with coaches. So you have one live session with a coach every week, right? To be able to practice those things. There's a lot of questions are these accredited coaches? So yes, they're accredited coaches. And second of all, and I think most importantly, we Mentor Show, we have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and there we go. Oh no, this is not what I want to show you. There we go. We have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, right? And in this base of subscribers, we have thousands and thousands of coaches, right? So here, what you see here are really the handful of coaches that were selected among thousands and thousands of coaches. So these are really selected to help you in the best way possible. You get these session once a week, all the future healing masterclasses, and also exclusive webinars, just like this one. So you're gonna get, for people who want to join the course, we're gonna send some links in the chat. I'll also show later how you can join. Or you can just type Mentor Show on Google and follow the path, and you'll be asked to sign up, enter an email and a password, and then you'll be on the checkout. So the offer, I talked about this already, but I'm just gonna repeat one last time. This whole thing, the Heal method, SAFE, the weekly live sessions, and so on, I talked about it. The total value would be $5,000. I mean, just going to a conference of Gabor where there's live participants and so on, it would be more than the whole membership price. Normally, the membership price is at $1,200 per year, but especially
so what you learned was that your problems weren't as important as other people's.
Yeah.
Sorry about this. Especially for this event and for these next few days, instead of $1,200 a year, we make it $399 a year, right? So this is a 66% discount just for this event right here. And since you're among the happy few who stayed and participated to this seminar. So this is just going to be a few days more. Along with this, we have an important guarantee, right? Just because we don't want money to be an issue, right? So since we've seen the impact of the Heal method on tens of thousands of people, we know the impact that it's going to have. We know you're going to be happy with it. If you go along with it and you follow Gabor's path and you do the exercises and so on, we know how profound the impact can be in your life. So that's why we decided to take the financial risk on our side so that you don't have to take it. So here is how it goes. If you watch the program, you watch the whole course, and you do the exercises, but you still think it's not for you, you don't like it, you can ask for your money back and you'll get your money back, right? So you just send us the pictures of the exercises and we'll check that you watch the video, the whole course. And then we send you the money back. It's very simple. You just send an email at info@mentorshow.com and we refund you. So, it's basically, if you don't like it, you get a refund, which is, you're not going to see anything like this anywhere, I think. This is how confident we are that it's going to be useful. So the offer will be here for just a few days. So I think, if you ever wanted to do something about this trauma, I think this is the time. You've got the best experts on trauma. You've got Bessel, you've got Gabor. There's about 60 hours of content on there. And we have built a simple and practical program for you so that you've got a guarantee that takes out the financial risk if you don't get enough from it. So this is really meant and thought for you to have a profound impact, and in a soft and as easy as it can be way, because you're taken by the hand of Gabor. Okay, we're gonna watch a little bit more now. We're gathering. There's a lot of questions about the program and so on. So I'll answer all of those, but just so you get also a little bit of some glimpses of the masterclass, I'm gonna show you a little bit more now. Okay, let's go, and I'll see you in a minute.
So as I mentioned, trauma keeps showing up in our lives, and in ways that we may think are normal, and we may think actually just represent our personalities and who we are. So I'm going to go through a list that I prepared about some of the ways, and this is not an exhaustive, complete list by any means, but some of the ways in which trauma can show up in your life. Which is to say that if you recognize these characteristics or behaviors or these dynamics, you might wonder if they're not the imprints of some traumatic experiences. So I mentioned that trauma imposes a shame-based view of yourself. So how do you feel about yourself? Are you ashamed of yourself a lot of the time? Do you feel guilty a lot of the time? Do you have a sense of inferiority? Do you compare yourself to other people? And do you feel inferior to them? Or do you think you're superior to them? In which case you can be president of the United States. But these are all signs of trauma, both the comparison, the sense of inferiority, or the grandiosity of being superior. So how do you feel about yourself? That's the first question. The second one is, do you get triggered? Now, what does it mean to get triggered? I may come back to this question of triggering later in this workshop, in this masterclass. But just think of the metaphor of the trigger. It comes from weaponry. How big a part of the weapon is the trigger? This small. The only reason the trigger works is because there's ammunition there in an explosive charge. So when you get triggered, there's some explosive charge in you that goes. That explosive charge is the traumatic imprint. So it's always very interesting to look at our triggers. Closely allied to that is reactivity, bursts of anger, bursts of rage that might erupt from you. Interruption means that there's something undercover that every once in a while it just blows. It's like a kettle or a volcano for that matter. So there's some fire inside that erupts every once in a while. That could be the imprint of trauma. I'm not talking about healthy anger. I'm talking about outbursts of rage that are not related proportionately to what happens in the present. Behaviors. Trauma can show up in certain behaviors, like repeated behaviors that are harmful to you, like addictions, or being in unhealthy relationships, or not taking care of yourself physically and emotionally, neglecting yourself. So trauma can show up in these behaviors. It can show up in relationships where you get frequently triggered by, or you think you get triggered by your partner. In a later lesson, we'll be going deeply into relationships. But in your relationship, is there a repeated sense of resentment and reactivity? And do you get stuck in relationships that don't work for you? Next, are you burdened by a sense of hopelessness that certain things, certain qualities like joy or happiness or freedom or peace are not available to you and they never will be? Are you overtly optimistic? Are you one of these positive thinkers that everything is always okay and tickety-boo when they're not? So are you either hopelessness or kind of a compulsive positivity? They can both be signs of trauma. Look at your personality. Because the personality is not who we are, but it's who we think we are. Our personality is very often formed in response to needs not being met and the way we adapt it. So for example, if you weren't given the attention that you needed just for existing, you might be consumed being very attractive. You look at that word attractive. What are we trying to attract? We're trying to attract attention so that we become consumed by being physically attractive, and we have to check our bodies 10 times a day in the mirror, or attract attention by being loud, or we attract attention by being smart, whatever we can use, but are we consumed by attracting other people's attention? If you didn't experience as being liked as a kid or being loved as a kid, you might become very charming. And then you have a charming personality. If you weren't liked for who you were, just because who you were and as you were, you might become one of these very nice people that's always nice to everybody and suppressing your real self because you have to be nice. And everybody thinks, what a nice person. That's just your personality. If you weren't made to feel important just for existing, which every child needs, you might become a helper. Now you're going to be important. And you might choose to be in one of the helping professions. Partly for good reasons, but partly also out of a need to be important. And I've certainly been through that. It was responsible for my workaholism as a physician, this need to be important, which I didn't even realize I had. So, does your personality carry the imprints of needs that weren't met. I mentioned body image. What is your body image? Do you judge your body? Do you look at yourself critically? Once I went to a workshop at a facility in California, and in the bathroom, instead of mirrors, there was a big sign that said, "You look great." But how many times do you check yourself in a mirror? Is this body part too big? Is it too small? What's your body image? Are you a perfectionist? How do you feel about yourself when you don't do something perfectly? So perfectionism. Are you what they call a control freak? Nobody's born a control freak. You try and control things because otherwise you're afraid that things aren't going to work. You learned that somewhere. Are you very critical and judgmental of other people? That can be a traumatic imprint. Do you face health challenges? I'll be saying more about that in further lessons. Mental health challenges, addictions, physical health problems. These are not always, but certainly very frequently and most of the time, manifestations of trauma. What's your sense of motivation? Are you motivated? Do you have incentive? Do you have vitality? Or do you feel kind of listless a lot of the time? Meaningless. Are you codependent? And what does that mean? It means that you're dependent on somebody else to do well so you can feel okay about yourself. So you're dependent on somebody else. So typically, addicted people may have codependent partners whose sense of well-being depends on that addicted person getting better. That's what a codependent is. And codependency shows up in so many ways. And are you consumed by concern with the past, what happened? Is your mind always on what happened? Or what should have happened? Or are you always worried about the future or fantasizing, either worried about the future or fantasizing about it? In other words, what's your relationship to the present moment? So these are all some of the imprints, some of the impacts in which trauma can show up in your life. And as you consider these questions, keep remembering to check in with your body. What are you experiencing in your body as you ponder these questions? So these questions I've just given you, or these manifestations of trauma that I've just listed for you, they're kind of clues. So if you recognize them in yourself, you can start wondering where they came from, and what's the imprint, and what's the experience that led me to be that way. You don't have to find the answers right away, but it's worth asking the questions. And generally I find that when people start asking themselves those questions about where did these traits, behaviors, experiences come from, the answers will emerge. But I'll say one more thing here. I'm quoting a psychiatrist here. His name is Mark Epstein, and he wrote a book called The Trauma of Everyday Life. And he says, it's not as important to find the cause of our traumatized feelings as it is to learn how to relate to them. So from the point of view of healing, and I mentioned this when I defined trauma for you, the present is much more important than the past. It's much more important to see how does trauma show up in my life than to figure out exactly what happened. Now, usually, as you'll see ongoing in this masterclass, it is not that difficult to discern where it all came from. If you go through those questionnaires, the ACE questionnaires that we did in a previous lesson, and then the small t questionnaire, you can pretty much find the sources of your traumas. But even if you can't, it's more important to recognize the imprints than to try and be a Sherlock Holmes detective about the causes. Trust your organism. When you're ready, those answers will emerge. Somebody I worked with in a previous exercise was 63 when they realized that they'd been traumatized. That's when she was ready. So these answers will come up for you when you're ready. So this exercise is related to the lesson we just completed about the impacts of trauma. There'll be a writing exercise, so take out your healing diary, and ideally what you'll do is you'll have a double page here, and you'll write something on one page and then something on the other side. So take 4 traumatic events, one at a time, from that list in the previous exercise about the adverse childhood experiences, the big T traumas, or the small T traumas. And just take one of them and write it on one side of the page. You might write down lack of help. You might put down sexual abuse. You might put down my parent being an alcoholic. You might put down not being accepted. Just put that down. That's the traumatic event. You put that on the left-hand side of the page. On the right side of the page, make 4 quadrants, like divide the page into 4 parts. And you put down body, personality, behavior, and relationships into each quadrant. And then what you will do is you look at that traumatic event, small t or big T, on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, under each quadrant, write down how the effects are showing up in that area of your life. So how does it show up in your body? Pain, tension, rigidity, whatever it is. How does it show up in your personality? In your sense of yourself? How does it show up in your behaviors? That's the 3rd quadrant. And then how does it show up in your relationships? Relationships meaning relationship with your friends, fellow workers, romantic partners, possibly with your family, even your children, whoever you're related to. So you do that, and do that repeatedly for 4 of those either small T or big T traumatic experiences. And take the time, and again, when you're doing this, here's the key: be body aware. What are you experiencing inside yourself as you're contemplating those questions?
How did you find that, people? How did you find these 2 lessons? We're still in the first part of the masterclass, the Hear the Pain, where he's giving some concrete ways to understand the wisdom of trauma. I thought it was really mesmerizing to see, and a very concrete way to understand better, which is the first step, right? Here, the pain is the first section, and it's really the foundation of what comes after, which is actually trying to heal. Fantastic, a great exercise, hands-on, so deep, amazing, so beautifully explained. Wow, freeing. Okay, that's nice to see. Now, imagine having a whole program with these kind of lessons of Gabor, a whole program that you get week by week, right? With Gabor. Imagine where that could lead you, right? I think there's a reason why, I showed you some testimonies, and so many people say, like, this masterclass is a lifeline for me. It's because, here you get a little bit of a sense of it. But if you have the whole program week by week with this progression, first hearing the pain, understanding very profoundly, then empowering yourself to heal, then aligning your relationship, and then the lifelong healing, imagine where that could lead you, right? Look, your mind is like a jungle, like a dense jungle where there's almost no path. You can't walk through it. There's so much vegetation that you can't really walk through it without a machete, right? And the first time you cut a path, it's very difficult, right? You have to push through the vegetation. But the second time you take the same path, then it's easier. You've gone there once, there's less vegetation, and the third time it's even easier. And after a while, there's this route where you can just walk there freely. And that's how habits are formed in the brain. But here's the thing: many of the paths that you created in your brain in childhood were survival paths. Maybe it was, for example, shutting down, or maybe it was like people pleasing, maybe it was anxiety, maybe it was hypervigilance. And those paths, they help you survive, right? But today, they're not helping you anymore. And the problem is this: it's that the brain always prefers the easiest path, even if it's not the healthiest one, right? So healing means something that is very simple but quite challenging for a lot of us. It's that you have to take your machete and actually start cutting a new path through the vegetation, a path that is filled, that you've never walked before, right? And you have to go through that path enough times so that it's even easier than the first one, right? And only then it will become your second nature. And this is when you will have healed. And look, it doesn't have to be a struggle. You can be taken by the hand with very soft steps forward, and with the help of Gabor here, who's taking you gently across that new path. because that's exactly why we built the Heal program. It's not to give you more ideas, it's to help you practice new paths again and again until they become your second nature. And maybe one day, without even thinking about it, you will walk this new path. And one day this new path will feel so natural that you'll forget the old one ever existed even. Because healing is when the healthier path becomes actually the easiest path, right? Only then you will have stopped the past from hurting the present and really reclaimed your choice of life, right? This is really the meaning of this Heal program that we've created. So before we get to new lessons, I have more in store to show you. I feel like it has had a lot of very good welcome and success. So I'm going to show you some more since you're as excited as I am to show you a little bit the inside. But first, we have so many questions about the program. So I'm going to start trying to answer. We'll try to answer as many as we can. The first question was, how do I get started? So first, the team is sending you some links in the chat. You can just click on that link, and I can just simply show you. You will be asked to sign up, right? There you go. There you go. You will arrive here. You can click on sign up, right? Then you will be asked to enter an email. And then you will enter a password. So here it's any password that you use. There you go. So this is to create your account, right? So you create your account. And then you arrive here on the checkout. And so this is the offer right now for you and for the next few days. You get it for $399 instead of $1,200 US dollars, right? And you get the full Heal method. You also get Bessel's course and everything I already talked about. The total value is $1,200, but here you get the 66% discount. Just enter your name, your country, your address, and then your credit card number, and then you join the course. You can also, if you want to use the installments, you can also click here, and you will be asked to pay 3 times $159 for the first 3 months, right? I'll take the opportunity here to answer some questions about the subscription. So the subscription, usually it's $1,200 a year. So here you get the first year at $399, and then in 1 year, it will be $1,200. Now, if you don't want that renewal to happen, you can very simply cancel. You can just send us an email at info@mentorshow.com. You say, I want to cancel my renewal, and then you are safe. You won't be charged. You can also cancel in your account, in the My Account part. So this is as simple as it gets. In 2 minutes, you cancel your renewal if you don't want. And there were some questions about when and do I stop getting access if I cancel my renewal and so on. So obviously you still have access. You've paid for your first year, so you're going to get everything for your first year. Just if you cancel your renewal after 1 year, you won't pay, so you will not have access anymore. So this is $399 for the full year. Do I have immediate access? Yes, you have immediate access. As soon as you pay the masterclass, it's online and it's on demand. So as soon as you join, you can watch the whole masterclass. And there's a lot of questions, what is the pace and so on. So there are some people who watch the whole thing in 2 days, and then there are some people who watch a little bit every week. What we advise is, you take 30 minutes, 2 hours per week, and in this way you can finish the masterclass in about 2 to 3 months. Let me show you the coachings in your account. So for example, if I'm here in Gabor's masterclass, here I showed you all the different content, and here there's coaching, right? So here it's very simple. You get all the coachings, really amazing topics every week. So how do I distinguish who I truly am from who I learn to be? This is happening tomorrow, actually. Returning to the body to feel safe. What helps me stop repeating my parents' patterns with my own children, and so on. So here you can just reserve your spot. You click here and it books your spot. Okay. Let's keep going. So yeah, I don't have much time and how long it takes and so on. So you can see I already showed you some extracts. The masterclass, it's really bite-sized lessons. So usually you have between 5 minutes to 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. So it should really integrate in your life. And here's a good thing. You can download the lessons on your phone, so that you can watch it from anywhere, right? You can. It's very easy to download. You can download it all, and then you can watch it even if you don't have a network. The goal is it's not to add rush or pressure. It's really that you do it at your own pace, and that it fits into your schedule. How do I know I'll get better? And there's some questions about that. The truth is that we can't really promise that you'll get better. There's no ethical program that can guarantee you personal transformation because it depends on your participation. So this is why we created this risk-free guarantee. If you do the program and the exercises and it doesn't work for you, you get a full refund. So we cannot guarantee that it will help you, but if it doesn't help you, then you get the refund, right? So you don't have to take a financial risk. So let me take some more questions. Wow, there's a lot of questions. I'm taking another class right now and will not be able to start this course for a month at least if I wait to sign up when I have time. Can I still get the discounted price? Well, the thing is, this discounted price, it's only for this event. So I can't really promise you that you'll get it in 1 month. What I would suggest is that you take the opportunity now, and then in 1 month you start the course, and you will still have 11 months to go through it. That's if you don't renew the next years, which we hope you do, because we hope you'll be happy with it. But if you don't, you'll still have 11 months to go through the program, which is more than enough, to be honest. Is there an app that is downloaded where you have the masterclass? So yes, the app actually is amazing. I mean, we worked a lot on this. So you have the app. Here it is. Sorry. Here it is. So you can see this is Gabor up. And if I click here, watch now, you get the whole course here, here, and here you can see this download button right here. You see, I'm gonna download one for you. Oh. Here, you can see I'm downloaded it here, so you can have it on the app and you can download the episodes. Do you take the courses at your own pace? Yes, you can take the courses at your own pace. Is there a coach to share with and get feedback on written exercise? So yes, you have all those coachings every week, just because, sometimes people feel alone behind the screen, and well, they need the energy, they need some people to help them go through these things that are not easy. So this is why we put the coachings in this offer. It's because they're here to help you, right? And these coaches, they are selected, as I said before, because, well, they are the best among thousands of coaches, and also because they're experts of Gabor's teachings. Is Peter Levine also part of the masterclass plus Frank on Sunday? Right now, Peter and Frank are not on the platform yet. We'll see if by popular demand we will add them or not. How long does it take to go through everything? I think I've covered that. What can I gain here that I would not be able to gain if I just read books by Gabor? Right, that's a great question. Why shouldn't I just read the books? So here is it's a great question, and it relates to what I said before, that we feel like the self-help industry is broken because you just read a book, you get some wow moments, some epiphanies, then you switch to a video, and then a new video, and so on, but nothing changes. And so here we deliberately created a program that has practices, and a step-by-step program with concrete practices to try and then to integrate in your life. There's a daily practice, there's a weekly practice, there's the saying no exercise, there's like some exercises when some things happen in your life, like for example when you can't say no, how to use, you have this sort of like weapon with you to be able to confront these situations. You have the emergency kit. I'm going to show you some parts of the emergency kit for when you get triggered. By the way, the emergency kits are some things that Gabor used for himself. Gabor sometimes gets triggered. He tells me sometimes, and it's real triggers. So what has he developed to handle this kind of situations, right? And so all of this, who is asking this question, Bethelis, all of these Bethelis, you're not going to get them in the books. You're not going to get them on YouTube. You're not going to get them anywhere, right? This is because we build this exclusively on Mentor Show, right? So this is what you get, right? Mentor Leo, I can join at my speed. Yes, okay, so we talked about that. So you can choose which course to do first. Yes, you can choose which course to do first. You can do Bessel, you can do Gabor's, you can do, there's about 50 courses on there. So, you can choose your own pace. Are live coaching sessions at set times, and when are they? Do we have an opportunity to get personalized attention? And do I choose the weekly time sessions? So yes, you get about 8 time slots every week, right? So this is meant for you to always have a time slot that is convenient for you, right? 8 time slots. Among the 8 time slots, you're going to find the time slot that works for you. So this is a very important question, because wherever you are in the world, even if you're in Australia, we have a lot of clients everywhere in the world, in every time zone. So we make sure that there are coaches coachings for every time zone. By the way, I saw some questions on the coaches are AI and so on. So no, there's nothing is AI on the platform, right? The course, you can see it's real Gabor. The coaches, they're real coaches. This is not something that I mean, right now this is not something AI can do, and we wouldn't do it anyway. So if we cancel the subscription after purchasing the course, do we get to keep the course? So yes, obviously, if you purchase today and you ask cancel for in 1 year, you're still going to get everything, right? You're going to get the course, you're going to get the coachings for 1 year, and then after 1 year, since the renew won't happen, you won't have access anymore. Any parts of lessons AI written or developed? So the answer is no. Anyway, I mean, you can try to ask Gabor to develop something with AI. Trust me that he's not gonna want to do this. It's not really his style. It's such an authentic person. Is there a limit to how many I can watch in a year? Question from Kimason. No, there's no limit. You can watch everything. There's no limit. Are the coaches real people or AI? Yes. Okay. Should I show you some more lessons? Yes. Okay, let's do it. Okay, I'll show you some more lessons. You can keep asking your questions in the chat, and let's do some more lessons so that everyone gets something out of it. And I'll get back with you after. I'll answer a few questions, and then maybe we'll say good night and to keep some energy for Sunday. All right, let's go. Oh, so just, the first lessons that I showed you were Hear the Pain, and now we will be, I think, in the Empower Yourself to Heal. There you go.
This is the emergency kit breathing practice, and it's that 4-7-8 breath pattern. You begin by breathing in through the nostrils to a count of 4. You hold the breath for a count of 7, and then through the pursed lips, against a bit of resistance, you'll exhale through the mouth for a count of 8. And you'll do it all together 5 times. I'll count you through the first 2 times, and then have you just count yourself through the remaining 3. So, in through the nostrils, hold the breath, out through the pursed lips. Let's begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now you count yourself through 3 more cycles. I keep counting and breathing as I say these words. This is an emergency kit breathing exercise. As much as you can, take your attention off whatever upsets you. Take your attention off that, off your thoughts, and just focus on the breath. Now, I find myself doing this practice several times a day. Not just because I'm upset, just as a practice. The teacher Eckhart Tolle says that better than attending all kinds of seminars and retreats, if you can just take a few conscious breaths every day, that'll give you the biggest sense of presence and awareness. Thank you. Now, if you're anything like me, when something triggers you and you got upset, you lose it. We use the word expression in English, losing it. What do we lose? We lose self-regulation. We lose the capacity to be in charge of ourselves. Something erupts out of us. And sometimes you can even watch it happen, but feel helpless to stop it. What's really going on is that the front part of your brain that regulates responses goes offline, and an old defensive, aggressive part of your brain takes over. It's almost like the reptilian part of your brain takes over your behavior. So we need to have some kind of an emergency kit to stop that from happening. Because when you act that way, certainly when I've acted that way, what follows is regret and remorse and guilt, and then having to clean up a mess that ideally we might not have created in the first place. So take your healing diary, and the first thing you'll do is just write down, either in paragraphs or in point form, some examples when you've behaved that way, when you've erupted that way, and then you were deeply regretful. So just write down the examples. And notice what happens in your body as you're writing them down. And do so without self-blame. Do so with just almost like a scientific precision of here's what happened, here's what triggered me, here's what I felt. So that's the first thing you do. And once you've done that, whether it's 1 page or 2, whatever length it takes you, write down some words that you might wish to say to yourself at such moments. So what would words be that you would utter to yourself that would calm you down? Just write them down. This doesn't have to be long. In fact, if you make it too long, it'll be counterproductive. So just a few sentences that you would wish to hear, say to yourself at such moments. When you've written that, then, and if you're satisfied with it, then dictate or write the words into the text notes on your phone. because they'll be available for you everywhere you go, because most people carry their phones everywhere. So just have these notes in your phone, and then finally record them in your own voice and keep the audio on your phone. So when you're in that state, you can actually just push the button and listen to yourself. And what I'm going to do is to give an example in my own voice talking to you, and you can keep this with you as well. And I completely understand that when you're in that state, the last thing you want to do is somebody telling you to calm down. So let's take a bit of practice and self-compassion and patience.
All right. How did you like this one? These are really meant to be tools that the goal is that you have these tools afterwards with you, and you don't even need the masterclass anymore. If you have these tools and they work for you, then you can use them for the rest of your life, basically. So this is why it's really powerful. And you can see in the first lesson that Gabor mentions that he's doing this several times a day. So, I mean, this is really something that he's basically practicing what he preaches. Okay, let me answer some more questions here. Are there some spots left? So yes, because it's limited to 500 people. Now the team tells me that there's about 120 left. So there are still some spots left for people. Do I get the PDF like Oprah? Yes. I didn't talk much about this. So on both the masterclasses, the one from Bessel and the one for Gabor, there's a workbook, right? So let me show you the workbook. Give me a second because it's not sharing my screen. Fantastic soothing practice. Amazing. There. Okay. Trying to show you the workbook from Gabor. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so it's right here. You see, you can download the workbook here, and then you can simply see it right here. I don't know if you can. Yes, you can see it. Okay, perfect. Sorry, I struggled a little bit. So this is where the workbook, and obviously you can print it. I mean, it's wonderful. You have all the exercises and so on. You have even some spaces to practice the exercises. Here you see the questionnaires and so on and so forth. It's really in depth. Look at how much content, how much tools. There is the emergency kit, all the different tools for triggers and so on and so forth. Cultivating authenticity, the saying exercise, and so on and so forth. This is for the workbook of Gabor, and I'd like to show you also there were some questions about the Oprah personalized plan. There you go. So in Bessel's masterclass, it's meant as you're going to go through all the different somatic practices from Qigong, martial arts, EMDR, tapping, and so on, that he's seen as something that is effective for trauma. But here's the thing: is that for Bessel, there's no one size fits all solution, right? So everyone is going to work differently, right? So that's why we built a way for you to get your personalized plan. So through the masterclass, you're going to answer a few questions that Bessel made on each practice, on how you feel, on how you felt before, on what kind of sensations you got, and so on. And then you're going to get this personalized plan, right? So the goal here is to build enough neuroplasticity to create change, and really have simple practices to rewire your relationship with yourself and tame the inner beast. And so you're going to get a review of your profile. So once again, this is just an example. Oprah didn't do this, but we just took it as an example. And here, this will be worked on by the implementation teams at Mentor Show, really trying to understand the answers to your questions, and giving you a first diagnosis. And then you will get the ranking of the different practices that worked for you or didn't work, depending on the impact that it had across the masterclass. You'll get the ranking of the solo practices and then the partner practices. And based on that, and also based on what you said were your available slots in the week, you will get exactly this, which is we will fit in the best practices that work for you in the right times. We'll give you a tutorial on how to include that, and you'll also get this incredible toolkit depending on your emotional stages, which we split in the survive mode, the stabilize mode, and the strengthen mode. Right. So, for example, survive is for moments of real panic attacks, and so on. And strengthen is more when a moment where you feel calm, where you feel strong, where you feel at peace, and this is a good moment to create those new neural pathways. So everyone who's going to do the masterclass and send this to the team is going to get their own unique, personalized plan, right? So this is really, it's really one of its kind. There's no one is doing this out there, right? So, and this is included, obviously, in the offer that you have tonight. Would there be a conflict of interest if I already work with a trauma therapist, but I feel I need more support? Actually, there's a lot of people who are doing this, right? There's a lot of people who are in therapy, but they want extra help from Gabor's and so on. And you can obviously do both in the same time, and they complement each other. Some more questions, people. Leo, when I click on the link, it shows $99. I don't really know why. Maybe you have. I don't really know if there's a bug or anything like this. You can contact info@mentorshow.com and then answer within 24 hours. All right. Some more questions, people. Right now, we don't have CEUs, no. Could you let me know what other masterclass are included? So yes, there's l- about 50 masterclasses on Mentor Show. Some masterclasses are on trauma, but some are also on toxic relationships, how to understand them, how to get out of them, how to get back your energy. There are some masterclasses on stress and anxiety. A lot of different um, verticals, I would say. I'm in the Hill class at this time. If you're already joined, then you have access to everything already. How much longer are we going to be? I think I'm gonna wrap up because I think I answered most questions. Now, any final questions, people? The link for the masterclasses will come through emails. Yes, obviously. How to navigate through the courses. I think you choose the mentor that you would like to start with, and then I would advise to go through the whole course before you move to another course. Can we get a bigger discount? So, I mean, this, just so you know, this is a $1,200 value. So you get a 66% discount. This is the biggest discount that we do. So you're not going to get a bigger discount than this, unfortunately. Attachment styles. Yes, there's a lot of workshops on attachment styles. This is one of our biggest topics. Are you AI? No, I'm not AI. There's no AI of me right now. Is this tax deductible? Yes, there is tax. So it's tax deductible. So the time of the next session is going to be sent to you by email. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you, everyone, for this session. Now it's 2 hours we've been together. I hope you liked the insight. Now, just a little story before we say goodbye and good night to each other. I was in Japan some years ago, and I was, visiting in like a small temple, and inside there was a ceramic bowl that had clearly been broken and then repaired. But I saw something that was a bit strange for me. It's that the cracks of the bowl was not hidden. They were really filled with gold, right? And so I talked to the people there and asked why it was like this, and I learned that this is actually a Japanese custom and a Japanese type of art that is called kintsugi. And so here's how it works: like when a bowl breaks, they don't try to stick it back together and really make sure that we don't see the fractures. Instead, they repair it with a type of lacquer mixed with some kind of gold powder. And so the cracks, they become some kind of luminous lines that run through the object. And I thought this was really an amazing art, because it's this philosophy that is quite simple but also quite radical. It's that the break is not a defect to erase and to hide. It just becomes a part of the object's life and the object's history, right? And so sometimes the cracks can actually make it even more beautiful than it was before, right? And so why I'm telling you this, right? Well, in a way, the teachings of Gabor and the teaching of this masterclass is to do this, right? It's not to pretend that hardship never happened. It's to give you the tools to make these fractures of life integrated in your life, understood, and then transformed into something stronger. So it comes back to how I started this session, which was that, the trauma of Gabor actually became his superpower, which is to see through people and to be able to help them. And so just like in the kintsugi, the cracks can become the lines of gold in your own story, right? And this is the goal of the course. So people, thank you for your attention. On Sunday, we'll go into parts work with a specialist of parts work to finish this amazing week with the step of integration. It's going to be profound, it's going to be very specific, and it's going to be very practical, as always, to try to make it as useful for all of you as possible. All right, everybody. Well, have a good rest. Have a good rest on Saturday, and see you on Sunday for the final act. Bye bye.
How can physical illness be connected to emotional wounds you didn't even know that you had? Why do you keep falling into the same destructive patterns, even though you know better?
No, it's not because you're crazy. It's because you got stuck on trying to cope with things that you were really to cope with. You couldn't do it back then, and you got stuck there. It is likely that your body has been geared to become a specialist in surviving danger.
Your pain carries a message. Learn to decode it.
And you're likely to feel like, I am crazy. I shouldn't have become so angry. There was no reason for me to be so scared. But there was a reason, because you got primed for danger. You got primed for rejection.
What if my trauma wasn't irreversible damage, but a doorway to transformation?
Your body is what they call in science neuroplastic. We can change.
Healing yourself is the greatest gift you can give to your children. Every parent-child relationship can have a second chance.
We can also help you to rewire your brain now, but in order to do so, you have to actually befriend that internal world. We will give you a whole range of exercises to help you to find out what can make you feel more comfortable living in the body of that creature that you are.
I built, for the first time, a practical, step-by-step guide towards healing. You'll find concrete actions for everyday life to uncover the root of your struggles and understand your trauma. I have a vast experience in the laboratory
and in life on how to help people overcome their trauma and to fully come to life.
It's an opportunity for you to heal. I'm Gabor Maté, and I invite you to take this journey with me.